government in today's debate like is even worse off than opening government and what they propose to us, right? Isaac brings particularly two things to you in today's debate, and let's show you exactly how like all of the arguments are bullshit. Isaac tries to frame out a possibility of control by saying that general self-improving AI can acquire their own knowledge and set goals. But where Isaac flaws in his argument is where he immediately equates these things to the same features that human beings in themselves have. So if he agrees that this quality in themselves like exists in human beings who even have personhood rights, why in this sense if we can control like these people from like using all these their abilities to want to control other people, if you can legislate human beings themselves, why can't you also legislate like artificial intelligence, right? So like the only answer that takes care of all these questions that government tries to run into this debate is simple: legislation, right? For example, this debate doesn't even say that we're going to be able to give these people personhood rights, right? Instances that they can defend themselves in court and all of that. So to the instance where we don't grant them exactly the same kind of rights that we grant ourselves, this exactly makes us superior like to them in themselves also. Isaac also says states have a responsibility to give their people good life. We totally agree, implicitly, right? But we think that also that by states allowing researchers into AIs, it ultimately means that states also want to give their people good life, right? To the extent where we say, or where everybody agrees that there are huge amounts of benefits that could arise from this kind of AIs, it ultimately means that any state that adopts the researchers into these things ultimately wants to give their people good life. Vis-a-vis like being able to ensure that we have superior work mechanisms, okay? Being able to ensure that like there's efficient economies and all of that, and that we use these AIs to our own benefits. We think that all that like is important, right? Opening government says there's a possibility of annihilation, right? What we think is that if human beings have the ability to annihilate each other and have not done so yet, right, because we're able to control ourselves, we're able to give ourselves onto laws and legislate ourselves, why do you think this fear will materialize, right? We don't see how that is even possible. Secondly, they say human dignity is threatened. OO tells you that if these AIs are superior to humans, then this dignity is flawed, and we can do away with it, right? We don't need to have dignity when we have things that are superior to us. But from closing opposition, we agree with CG that these things are not even superior to humans, because they are created by humans, human endeavors, right? Because humans create them, ultimately means that we also have superiority over them. So our dignity is still intact in that instance, right? Pascal says a very ridiculous thing that we should ban things that have proven to better us on all levels. He uses particular examples as things that have bettered us in calculations and all of that. Like a simple response is, if we've always continuously moved into technologies that better human beings in times like vis-a-vis calculators, computers, etc., why is this particularly harmful, right? In the instance where we can also control them. This motion says that these people can easily can just learn on by themselves, right, and acquire new knowledge. This is exactly what even mere computers do, right? These things are not things far-fetched from what we already have in status quo. Why is this new fear arising in today's world, as we see Isaac says? So they also agree from opposition bench that nature already allows for superiority of species, and we think that this goes in consonance with what nature already allows, right? If you don't see a problem with chimpanzees being better than monkeys and human beings being better than chimpanzees, why do you have a problem with AIs being better than human beings in themselves? We think like all that is flawed. But majorly to our extension, right? This debate is primarily about like researches, right? Not even about the implementation of these things also. So what we think is that firstly, that researches are intrinsically beneficial to human beings, right? Researches mean better learning. Researches mean progressiveness. Researches mean technological advancement, right? In the instance where we want to research these things, it ultimately means that we want to know to the extent where these things can harm us and to the extent where these things can be beneficial to us. So when we do this ultimately means that states can decide to say, let us implement this or let us not implement it. For example, we didn't ban the research on nuclear facilities, right? We said let us allow these people to tell us what nuclear facilities can do. And now that we have seen that nuclear facilities can be good for us and nuclear facilities can also be bad for us, we have said, oh no, states can use nuclear facilities to generate power supply and all of that, but states cannot weaponize nuclear facilities and have nuclear weapons. Why is this wrong in this instance? Why can't we say let us also allow researchers and see the harms and benefits that come out from having this artificial intelligence, and then we can decide what parts of them that we want to implement in our world. So researches in themselves don't immediately mean implementation. I'll engage opening.
There's the alternative that we provide that the benefit of research can still be achieved. So what is your argument? And even on the argument of nuclear weapon, why are we getting nuclear weapon today?
Sit, if you agree that the benefits of research can still be implemented, why are you banning research in the first place? We don't understand. Right? So, thirdly is that we think that banning researches in one field of a futuristic technology sends a threat to other forms of progressive futuristic technologies that can exist, right? The way that these researchers in themselves work, or these researchers in themselves work, is that they work more or less like a community of researchers, right? when you send a direct threat to shut down researches of people's life work, right? This thing takes people decades upon decades to be able to achieve, right? When you shut this down, what you do is that you threaten every form of progressiveness. So, for example, if you had said, let us shut down computers because they were going to take away the jobs of typewriters, or let us shut down tractors because they were going to take away the jobs of farmers, right? You would have not even had the level of progressiveness that we now have in today's world, and all the benefits that we now have that these guys agree are inherent in technology would not have even existed in today's world. Also, we think that in our own world, a new level of equality, like amongst humans, is created via like universal basic income to themselves. So ultimately, what are the nature of this like general artificial intelligence, right? We think that it breaks the hallmarks of like all other AIs as we know it. So we agree with closing government that this things transcend what the normal AI that we know today like have, and also it transcends human limits, right? So why can't humans exploit things that are better than them to be able to create better lives for their own citizens? We think that this is something that Faceless must interrogate in its own case, right? So why can't we allow governments to benefit maximally from the existence of this artificial intelligence in themselves? And also, what we think is that when these guys tell you about equality, we think that a better equality is created in our own life. For example, people live, there are poor people, there are rich people in today's world. But in instances where you have like AIs that exist and work for you, what it means is that people can now sit back and enjoy universal basic incomes without actually putting in as much work. So what we say is do people need to work to have better life? If these guys say these guys are going to take away our jobs and all that, do we need to be on jobs to enjoy better life, right? These guys are going to be working, these guys are going to be creating money, and this money is going to be pumped back into societies vis-a-vis like welfare packages and all of that. We don't see that as a problem. But lastly, regulations can always exist to mitigate the harms. So even though we consider that there are considerable harms that could be in this thing, right, we think that there are always regulations. The same argument they tell you about nuclear weapons. If we can regulate nuclear weapons, their harms, we can also regulate the harms of this kind of artificial intelligence. So why should we like shy away from technologies that can better our lives intrinsically, and then because we think that they're going to threaten us primarily? Questions that we must engage today is like, if these things can benefit us on all worlds, whether or not they are progressive world, first world or third world and all of that, why should we go away from them? If we can live well without being on jobs, right? If we can benefit from the money that these AIs are going to give us, why then should we ban them? We are proud to close opposition.